Hello, and thank you for joining me tonight. I go by Lune, and this is a very casual, soft-spoken, hopefully relaxing video that we're just going to talk about, or I'm going to talk, but the conversation is going to focus on the Zodiac signs and what I think of them. Now, this video will be informative in a sense, but it's also very general. There is so much more to you than your sun sign. So, please take that into consideration. I don't peg people based on their sun sign. This is kind of for fun. There's certainly a novelty to, oh, I'm a Cancer, I'm a this, I'm a that. And, so that's kind of where I'm taking it from. Really quickly though, I got this in the mail recently from someone named Troy, and I want to show it to you. It's a beautiful painting that I have hanging on my wall already, but I took it down, and it's got this gorgeous little waterfall kind of ripply thing, but specifically the moon has the sign of Aries because I am an Aries moon, which I think is so, amazing that anyone even pays attention to the fact that I'm an Aries moon. I absolutely love it, Troy. Thank you so much. It was so thoughtful and very appreciative, so thank you. It just pops into my head really quickly. I'm just going to mention one thing to a certain someone out there. I cannot remember her name, but I recently got a letter which was typed on pretty paper. It was printed rather. And she asked a question about a stone. So your answer is, please get blue kyanite. I think that will help you very much. Alright, so because I just mentioned the Aries moon, I just want to share with you, and I know I've talked about this in other videos. You might already know it. But there are many elements to your personal natal chart. And the three that we most commonly look at I go a little deeper, but the three that you might want to look into in case you don't know anything about these would be, your sun sign, so that's one of them. But then there is also your moon sign or your rising sign. So, to give you an example, I'll use myself. I am a Cancer sun, so, if you ask me, I'd say I'm Cancerian. I'm a July baby, and my moon sign is Aries. So the sun sign is you. It's like who you came into the world to be right now. It is a very strong aspect of your personality or the ways about you. And what's so beautiful about astrology is that we can put a language to how we might be feeling, and we can identify potential challenges that we face and how to get around them. Astrology should not be used to diagnose yourself, to psychoanalyze yourself, to obsess over, oh well, I'm this way because of this, or I'm this way, or don't ever, it's fun to nerd out on it, don't get me wrong, but I wouldn't ever suggest becoming obsessive or from my experience, even trying to understand my entire chart in one go is not gonna happen. You find out things in your chart, and this was said recently. I saw a video, it's actually probably an old video at this point, but I saw it maybe this summer by a YouTuber who goes by Virgo, and he has a great astrology channel. But he said that we kind of find out what something is in our chart. I think he was speaking about the rising sign at the time, but you could apply this across the board. You find out what your is when you're meant to, at a good time for you. So if you don't know your rising sign and you're interested in finding out, maybe this is the message to go check into it. My rising sign is Virgo. So if I'm a Cancer, if that's really my to put it simply, maybe my true nature, my ascendant sign, my rising sign being Virgo, is how people perceive me. So I might be perceived as very logical, grounded, because they're earthy, which I'd like to think I am a bit grounded for sure. They are, like I said, logical, organized, they get stuff done, they're punctual, they're in a sense compliant. And what I mean by that is not that they don't, have righteousness in them, but they understand that there's a need for rules, so they do follow the rules. And that is certainly how I feel I am perceived most of the time, and that's fine. I identify with it. When you're reading your horoscope, or I don't read a daily horoscope, but maybe a monthly kind of thing. I love Ines Heals. She has a great blog. I love her. I think she's really, really on point. But you could read your astrology for your, you could read your horoscope for your rising sign or your sun sign. You can go both ways. You can even throw your moon sign in there if you're into it. The moon is our mind. It is tied more to our emotions and the way we think, like the way our mind kind of works. So I'm telling you all this because once we get into the, talking about the zodiac signs, it might be helpful. So my mind is certainly very Aries. I'm very quick. I don't want to say that I'm not emotional. I'm a Cancer, so I am emotional, but I never identified with that hyper emotional Cancerian way. My Aries moon, and finding out that and reading about it helped me to put a language to how I felt. If you read it and it doesn't resonate with you, come back to it in a year or something. I wouldn't discredit it, but I wouldn't say you have to attach to something for sure. But an Aries, a moon in Aries, they're very, I don't want to say we're unemotional. We're not unemotional, but we understand that emotions don't really always make sense. They are these tools that tell us one thing or the other for sure. They do let you be led, feeling. They're sensory. It's feeling around in the world. But I never identified with, the stigma, which I'm going to share with you because I'm going to be generalized talking about the zodiac signs. But I never identified with that Cancer who's like crying all the time or so emotional or so weepy. And I have deep feels, guys, but I'm not that type. I cry. I certainly allow myself to cry. I certainly allow myself to feel. But an Aries type moon is typically a bit detached, or is able to detach from their emotions. It also leaves us with tons of energy when we start projects, to get excited about, to shoot all of these things off into the sky and just out into the universe. And that can be challenging, because which ones do you attach to so that you actually get them done? If you're all full of ideas, where's the rest of it? And that's something I certainly continue to have to work on for myself. I have a problem saying yes to things because I think I'm going to get oh yeah, I totally have the time to do that. I am a mom to a 5-year-old boy and I work from home. So when I'm home and he's home, we're home together. I have this channel, I have my shop, I have my clients, I have other jobs that I do. I help my partner with making videos. I do a little bit of, videography. I'm learning more about videography and doing that. I make music. I have a lot of, spinning discs in the air, so it's hard for me sometimes to find the time to do something or stay committed to all the things that I commit to. And I hate that about myself. I hate feeling like I let someone down, or that I, wasn't holding up my end of something. And it doesn't happen often, but I have to learn to say no more. That it's just a good language for me is, I would love to do that, but my schedule just doesn't allow it right now. And I've definitely flaked out on some people this past month, kind of tied into being really sick, super, super sick. That definitely created this tsunami of things getting a little out of whack for me in terms of commitments outside of my clients or my, the things that I have to prioritize, my family and my work. So anyway, that's just an example of the moon is like your mind, your emotions. It's more, people will not know your moon, like they will not see that in you until they really get to know you. Like it comes out much later in a relationship, in a friendship. So it's really interesting to, be a witness to something like that. So let's get into the zodiac signs, right? We'll start with Aries because that is the first. I actually like to consider that the year, I know like the year starts January 1st, but for me, energetically, I consider the year to start when Aries starts. Off the top of my head, I don't know the precise dates of these zodiac signs, but I will try to overlay them here for you. So Aries is a very fiery sign. They are full of fire. They are full of energy and ideas, again, and ambition. And it's difficult sometimes for them to follow through with things, like we talked about before. They're not as stubborn as like a Taurus, but it is sometimes difficult for them to branch out or try something new. Like they're not usually the type to, if you bring them a new song, or hey, let's try this new place, or hey, I got this for you, I thought you would like it, they're sometimes a little resistant to that. Now Taurus is very much like that, but Aries does have a little element of that as well. They remind me of each other a little bit in certain ways. They are passionate. They can be a bit combative, or you can certainly get into a very heated argument with an Aries. And I'm not going to tell you like only the bad things about the signs, and that's not necessarily bad either. Like I don't really look at things that way, but they have quick tempers. Not even quick, honestly, but like explosive. They're very like da, 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 da. And they will sometimes be the type to trying to put it the best way, hurt your feelings. They will be the one to, if you're in an argument with them, they will just let it out, like. And what's something that Aries should be very aware of is that you can't undo hurting someone's feelings, and you can't take back what you said. So be mindful of that fact. Like, you don't want to do that all the time. For me, I kind of used to be that way. I used to, say the most hurtful thing I could think of in an argument. I'm not proud of it. And it was mostly in my, romantic relationships when it happened. But that can't be undone. Like, it can't, even if someone forgave you, or even if you apologized, you can't take back what you put in their head that way. So just be mindful of that if you're an Aries and you feel like that resonates with you. What's really exciting about Aries is that they are so passionate. They're very driven. I think that sometimes they have a challenge with, like I said, like finishing things. So sometimes a challenge achieving their goals because their mind kind of like fragments a little. They're so aware of what they want. They're so aware of their being and their presence and their like what's real to them and that like fiery element, but it flickers, and there's a lot of facets to all of us. So Aries is very aware of all of their facets and all of their truths. So it's like fragmented a little. It's harder for them to like hyper focus on something and carry it through. So it's just a little bit about that. Taurus are very passionate, very grounded, very stable. They like nice things. They like nice experiences. They like good food and good sex. They like all of that. They're very have like a healthy appetite all around. They are stubborn though, and they can be so stubborn that it hurts them. It's not just making it difficult for someone else to get close to them or work through something with them or have some kind of growth or change with them, but it's also hurtful to themselves because they kind of close themselves off sometime, put up a wall, put up a like, no, I'm not changing, I'm not budging, I'm not doing this, I don't even want to hear it. And it's like, if they had just been a little more flexible, if they had just been a little more open to going with the flow, they might have gained a really good experience from it. I will say though that they do tend to come around eventually, most of my experiences anyway, but it happens on their terms and on their timing, and it's never something that they consider that, similar to Aries, that someone else led them to. It was them, like, oh no, I found that restaurant, I did this, I decided to do this, and they kind of do it that way. They certainly appreciate beauty. Like I said, they have a good appetite for things, and they like beautiful things. Now, I don't mean that it has to be stereotypical beauty, but things that they see beauty in and things that they see value in. And again, that doesn't have to be monetary, but like value in sharing experiences, or value in the knowledge that someone else has, or the conversation, like the really like get into it and just really enjoy that kind of thing that they can like wrap themselves up in, if I can say it that way. So Geminis are known for being, I want to say the word is two-faced. People say that, or having two sides to themselves. Bamba is a Gemini, and he certainly has two very extreme sides of himself. He's a living teddy bear, or he's barking his damn head off, trying to be protective. So he's like super mushy, or like, I'm really tough and I'm gonna go get that thing for you. There could be somebody who's like a workaholic, like workaholic, will spend like long hours somewhere, but when they get home, they don't do crap, and their house is like super messy, so it's like that polarity there. They're very good at communicating, very, very good. They're intellectual. They love intellect. They can become bored. They can become ready to move on from things, so that might be a challenge for some Geminis. People group them in as like they're cheaters or something. I don't see that, but I see that they need to be stimulated, and I see that they need to know lots of people. It doesn't mean that they need to be like, boning all these people. That's not what I mean, but they're not gonna find everything that they want or everything that they need from experiences with other people in one person. Like, one person cannot fill that role for a Gemini. So they could have their romantic partner, but then they might have another very friendly platonic partner that like, this is where I get my, where I can nerd out and talk about like this, or this is my travel buddy and we go and do this stuff together, so they sometimes need more people in their lives because of their need to be immersed and just like really stimulated by conversations, new ideas, and all kinds of stuff like that. Cancer, which is what I am, is known for being very emotional, very sensitive, very nurturing, very supportive. Sometimes hard to read because they do have the shell over them. They are typically very easily detached from people. Like, they will give you everything. They will give you all of it. But if you hurt them, or if you make fun of them, or if you treat them wrong, they're not going to stick around, and the claws are going to come out. People assume sometimes because they're so loving and nurturing and supportive that they don't have, that like that pinch, that pinch in them. But they do, and you don't want to piss off a Cancer for sure. There's certain signs that are that way, and Cancer is certainly one of them. They're very maternal, and by that I don't mean necessarily that they have to be women or anything like that, but they care about about people. They want to make sure, like, did you eat good? Are you good? Like, they have that kind of grandma vibe a little, or that caregiver is probably a better way to say it. Sorry, Cancerian dudes out there. I'm not trying to call you a little old lady, but a lot of times we care, we feel, and we're very empathetic. It's very easy for us to be like, oh, you poor thing, in a loving and sweet way. We can be a little stifling for sure. We can love and care and nurture too much, like the overgiving, like obsessive kind of mom, or the helicopter parent for sure. Cancer benefits from having other interests, from making sure that they're either romantic partner, their children, something along, whatever that kind of person or those people are in their life, that they make sure that they understand that neither of you need each other, but you benefit from each other. So it's okay to not obsess of like, oh, what are we doing? Where are we going? Blah, blah, blah. Like, just like on one person or on just your children, and like really focusing on them. It's good to they really should have hobbies and things that they're passionate about, so that they have other areas to place that loving and very caring, very like obsessive a little energy on. They need that. That's really good for them. Leo is a wonderful, they're all wonderful. I love all of them. I don't have bad feelings for any of the zodiac signs, so just to put that out there. Leo's a great sign. They're very confident. They like to be the center of attention. They certainly don't shy away from attention or anything like that. They like to be the star a little bit or a lot. They like to be pampered and take bubble baths and use like really nice creams and scents and just dress well, or dress how they want to dress and present themselves how they want to be seen, or as an expression of themselves. It's not a facade at all, but they like that. That's certainly something that they go for. They can be blunt. They can be hurtful. They can be what I would call like verbal, like, oh God, like, why did I say that? Like, hindsight 2020, like, I shouldn't have said it like that. I shouldn't have done it like that. Because they just they have so much confidence that they just do stuff, It doesn't come from a bad place, but sometimes it can be hurtful, and they need to be careful of that, of what they're doing, how it's going to be perceived, and take into consideration other people's feelings, other people's perceptions, where someone might be in their day. I'm not saying they're not caring, they are, but with that language, sometimes they need to watch out for that a little bit. Other things about Leo, that confidence, they certainly have a very healthy level of personal power and confidence. They typically always have a great head of hair too. Like, every Leo I know has like this like amazingly thick, like crazy mane of hair. I don't know what that is, but like, it's good. And sometimes I see that it's hard for them to connect with people. They are very much a leader. They are not even a leader like as in like the president, like that kind of thing, or like the top dude or woman in the business, but they're a leader as in they like to provide, they like to be good at what they do and be able to, like come on, let's go do this. I have this idea, this is what I'm doing, this is my work. Like, they like to organize things, not organize things that way, but like let people follow in their ripple, you could say, in their wave. But in terms of relationships, it can be sometimes, and of course this is not all of them. I know many Leos who connect with people so easily and wonderfully. So again, these are super general and for fun. But I see that sometimes it's hard for them to, I want to say specifically in my experience, the male Leos that I know, or I could say it that way, they sometimes have trouble maintaining their relationships or confirming and like being in their relationships, and then like having that relationship grow. It can take a little effort for them, and I don't know how to put my finger on it. It might be that they tend to bottle up their negative feelings and then let them explode, and it's like somebody's like, oh my God, that was intense. It can be sometimes that their expectations are a little too high, or that they can be a little superficial. They can be judgmental for sure. So those things kind of play into our relationships, So advice that I would give to Leos would be to, mind what you say and just don't say it right away. Like, give yourself 10 seconds to think about it. If there's any potential of like, is this going to insult them when I don't mean to? Is this going to put something in someone's head when that's not what I'm trying to do? And just consider those kind of things. And also know that, we're all very different. So not every person is the perfect package. You can't expect necessarily, to have this like 10, be dating this 10 who is, a rocket scientist who makes tons of money, who, has no points on their license, who wants exactly the same things as you, and who wakes up with perfect hair and, fresh breath or something. Like, sometimes they look for like this thing of perfection where they obsess over, their partners, like, oh, they looked at this person. I don't want to say they're jealous, but they do, since they like to be the center of attention. When someone else gets the attention, that can be like a major trigger for them, that can make them incredibly uncomfortable. So those are just some things to think about if you are a Leo, if you love a Leo, just to like play in, and I hope that that serves in some way. Virgo is known to be very logical, very organized, very punctual, someone you can certainly count on to get the work done, to be a very perfectionist type of personality. But their downside is that they can be very, very critical, very judgmental, very nitpicky, very and I see this in myself sometimes, for sure, and it's something I have to work to let go of. Again, this is no judgment, it's just for fun and a little opinion. But they would serve themselves well to let go a little sometimes. Don't try to control everything. Don't criticize people for just being who they are, or doing things their way when the Virgo wants them to do it my way. My way is the best way. I don't doubt that Virgo's way is the best way. Virgos know how to get stuff done, and they're very good, and it makes so much sense when you see what they're doing. But we all do things our own way. It's just how it is, Some of us like shortcuts on a keyboard, some of us go up to the file tab and drag it down, so we all have our own ways about us, and that's fine. We can't all have that like perfectionist Virgo thing going on. So they would just be better served to like give people space to mess up, or to be a little slower, or to do things in their own way, and not focus their energy on that, because they're not benefiting by doing so, and you're just kind of creating tension between you, and the other person feels judged, and like you're criticizing them all the time. It can be very like naggy a little, and stuff along the lines of that. So those would be some areas that potentially a Virgo could work on, or just keep an awareness on at least. And another thing is, like I said, they do try to control everything. They have a need for order, so it has to kind of go by the book, And when we do that, sometimes it works out wonderfully, but sometimes it just doesn't. Like, sometimes we planned like the best laid plans of mice and men kind of thing, and then when something goes wrong, it's like, oh, what the heck? What are we gonna do now? And it's very stressful. But when we know what we want, and then we know we're going to make the right choices, but we create, like, give it a little room, a little wiggle room, we just set ourselves up to be so much better able to receive from different directions, and things might play out even better than you ever could have planned, kind of thing. So that's just something to keep in mind if you're a Virgo. So Libras are very romantic. They love art. They love beauty. They're an air sign as well. So I don't know if I've been saying all of them. I don't think I have, but basically goes fire, earth, air, water, fire, earth, air, water. So Virgo is earth, Leo is fire, Gemini is air, Cancer is water, and Libra is an air sign as well. Now, all air signs have a little tendency to be kind of out there, a little like spacey, a little ungrounded, you could say, and not that they can't get grounded, but they have this element of inspiration and just kind of like floating a bit. I'd say Aquarius is probably like the most, but Libra certainly has that. Libra loves love. They love being in love. They love relationships. They love equality and justice and balance. And part of the drawback to that, it sounds beautiful, and it is, and there's many beautiful things about Libras, but something that happens with them is often that they lose themselves in the idea of love, or in the relationship, or in the project that they love, or the art that they love, or anything that they love, they will sometimes sacrifice their identity in a sense to what they feel is maintain harmony and keep everything level, like the scales. So that can't be maintained forever, and eventually the Libra individual will most likely feel like, I'm doing all this work, I'm sacrificing, I gave up this, or I started doing this because I thought it would bring harmony, and now I'm doing all the work and I've kind of established things to be this way, so the other person or people, or your job or wherever, just think that that's how it is, so they get used to it. But then when the Libra finally, like, the straw breaks, and they're like, oh, it's like this whole dynamic needs to shift again, and that can be very challenging. Dynamics will shift in relationships all the time, and they should. That's healthy. So I don't mean to say that that's a bad thing. But if the Libra had been more true to themselves from the beginning and didn't sacrifice any aspects of their personality or take on too much, then they would have not really seen that type of issue come up later on, when they have to change things, when it's too much, when they've stretched themselves too thin, or they begin losing themselves and they understand that they've lost themselves and they need to kind of bring it back into something. So if you're a Libra, that would be my advice, to make sure that you're true to yourself, that you know what your needs as in your needs as an individual, to fulfill some aspect of yourself, or through, whether that's your career, projects, things you're passionate about, and follow and stick to, like, your heart's calling, but also your emotional needs, and not to be too self-sacrificing for the sake of maintaining harmony, because it cannot last that way, and it won't be comfortable for you. You won't like it anymore. So Scorpio is known to be stereotypically kind of harsh, very moody. Cancer is very moody as well. And when I say moody, I don't mean like, moody, but their mood changes. Cancer mood changes because their ruling planet is the moon, and it moves through the zodiac so frequently, every 2.5 days or so. So let's say they're planning to do something. When that day comes, they might be like, I'm not in the mood, I don't feel like doing it, and like, you can't even force them to do it. So Scorpio does have a bit of that, but Cancer's kind of like the queen of that, or king. Scorpio can be, they're very mystical. It comes so naturally for them to be mystic, like whether that be reading tarot or working with energy, or their dreams. It doesn't even have to be something that they're actively doing. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna do my cards, or I'm gonna watch this Reiki video or something, but it's kind of part of them, where they typically all understand that they have this kind of connection to more than what is just physical, that there's like just something else out there, and they work with it in whatever their own way may be. That might be making their tea in the morning and like just thinking about it, and it's like boop, and they kind of go on and they've set an intention and they're working that way. They're typically very attractive, like mysterious. That's definitely something with them. And transformative. They're known to be ones that help other people transform. So that's something, really cool to think about. The downside to Scorpio is they can be very harsh, very cruel when provoked. And you won't see them coming. You will think everything's fine, and they will just snap, and they will sting you, and it is poison. Like they will get you right in the soft spot. So that's something that you have to be mindful of if you're dealing with a Scorpio. It's not that they're crazy or they're harsh or anything like that, but they sometimes don't let on how sensitive they are, or maybe they do. They're known to sometimes be ones who are drawn to experience anxiety or depression even, and things like that, because they are so sensitive. They are. Water signs are known to be very sensitive, and Scorpio is a water sign. But in terms of talking about the downside again, they can be secretive, and that can be completely fine, or that can make other people feel like they are being excluded or shut out. So a good example would be some, people with a great relationship, and the Scorpio doesn't necessarily share as much, though. They don't share what they're thinking about. If you've ever seen Eternal Sunshine of a Spotless Mind, it's kind of like the argument that Clementine has with Jim Carrey's character. I can't remember his name, but was that it was hard for him to be intimate, like as in sharing, as in, just like sharing what he's thinking about, or his passions, or, just like opening up enough. They can be a bit reserved in some cases, or again, it's more mystery. It's not like they're reserved. They're not like, no, don't do that. But they are more, they keep things to themselves. They enjoy it. It could be something like smoking a cigarette when no one knows that they smoke, or just something kind of like sneaky, or something that's just for them. It could be beautiful too. It doesn't have to be a cigarette or something, but something that's just for them, and they appreciate that they have their own little thing going on. It's like their thing. It's like taking them to like their own little world almost, or like their little private experience. I'd say the biggest downside, or the thing that I would suggest to watch out for if you are a Scorpio, is that having your own stuff is perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine to have things that are just for you, but you want to make sure that you're sharing enough of yourself so that people can feel connected to you and bond with you, and just appreciate the stuff about you that you're willing to share. And it doesn't have to be everything. No one has to share everything, but that can create a better experience for you in terms of your relationships and stuff. Scorpio can be sometimes ones to be a bit gloomy, if I may say that. It's not disrespectful at all. They're the darkest sign. They are very much associated with death, like not them as people, but the time of Scorpio in the time of year is a very big time of death, but hence transformation, transforming, going on to the next life is like, that's where the death kind of comes in. So they can be ones to kind of focus on that stuff in a negative way, sometimes too much, and that will only keep them in a low place. It will only make them feel more anxious or more depressed. I would just encourage Scorpios to know that, like, you are of the very mystic signs. There's a few, but you are of those ones, and you have a very high potential for manifesting what you want in this life, and it's going to happen through your mental powers, your mystic mental powers of what you create in your mind. And if you're creating and confirming thoughts of anxiety or thoughts of depression, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, this is tense, I don't feel good, and you're obsessing over that, then it's gonna draw that more to you. You're creating when you do that. If you can look at it more of an, we've talked about this before, but if you can look at something that's dark or unpleasant as an experience, as a feeling that passes, and not take it on as part of your mysterious identity, you'll let it go. It will pass. It will go through you, or through time, much more quickly. In addition, you can bring in and create like really amazing life if you just focus on it and know that you have a very strong mental tie, and discipline there will serve you very well. Sagittarius are very fun. They're very funny. They're like sometimes the life of the party kind of energy. They love to experience, and they're almost on a quest for personal truth, or like what's real, like what's really at the core of this, whether that be spiritual, or just really understanding something that seems really heavy and deep, or just complex, and they have this like quest for that. It could be completely internal or an external system, but it's related to them. Even if it's external, it's something that they very much associate with or are passionate about, and is a reflection of them in some way. They are very free-spirited, I want to say, for the most part, or they have a tendency to be the type who's down to go on a weekend trip out of nowhere, or something bigger than that even. Or, if they were doing nothing and you call them, they're like, yeah, okay, I'm not doing anything, let's go. Instead of like, I'm kind of cozy already. Like, like I would be, I'm kind of in for the night. They'd be like, yeah, totally, let's do it. Let's meet up. Let's do this. Let's create. Let's get something going. They're deep, but they're fun. They have a sense of humor for sure. The downside, I would say, to Sag is that sometimes they, and not all of them, of course, again, I feel like I have to keep having these disclaimers. Sometimes they also, because they are fire as well, it's harder for them to focus. Again, similar to that Aries, like we're all so multifaceted, that the Sag, kind of, they have so many options, they have so many ideas and so many passions that it's hard to focus on one, or they might focus on their passion, but then they'll leave out like a huge part to completing that task or that thing that will really like raise them up, so that not only is it their passion, but they're highly successful at their passion. So that would be something that I would suggest for any of the fire signs, but I'm speaking about Sag here, is to make sure that you're following up on the other end as well, that it's not just the experience. Make sure that if it's something that you're looking to gain from it, like set up the website, like set up your account, email those people back, do things on time, and try to incorporate more of a stability into your life in certain aspects. I'm not saying change your personality or anything, but you will gain a lot from having, if it's a fire, like it's all crazy and doing these cool things, but it's on something, like there's wood or something burning underneath it, and make sure that you have that base and that you're able to touch that base and kind of like feed off it and fire, like grow off of it and everything. Capricorn is the goat. They are very driven. They are very like workaholics. They will have either one job that they are like highly committed to, and they go in, they're there, they come home, they're taking calls, they're in meetings, they're planning, they're doing extra work, then they go back the next day. It's like they're very invested in what they commit to. They might have 10 jobs and they're hustling. They might be that type. It doesn't really necessarily have to tie into the way it is, but that's them in it. In any situation they are working, they like comfort, they like having a nice place, they like making money, they like reaching their goals, and they will not stop come hell or high water. With sometimes it can be a downfall a little bit, it can potentially lead to that, because they will set their sights on it, and like it is like the blinders are on, and they're gonna get there, and then they're gonna get to the top and they're like, oh, there's another one, and then they'll come down and do it again. They're more of the, I don't know how to say it, but they're like a good provider. They're very stable that way. They're earth as well. And the goat, it just keeps climbing these mountains. It keeps setting its sights on something, and it will not stop until it gets there. This you can see, and I know many Capricorns in wonderful relationships, so I'm not saying that, but it can distract you from things that you might gain some really beautiful experiences from. That's not to say you have to sacrifice anything to achieve your goals. I don't believe in that. I think we can have it all. I do. Maybe not all at once, but we can have it all. We can get to it all. But sometimes it takes, they're putting a lot of energy out. They're putting a lot of focus on their work, their goals, their stuff. And if they don't remember to take time for themselves, whether that be to, forge their relationships, to have experiences with friends, to travel, to just have a break, like whether they work, and then they take a vacation, like that's fine, but they need that time for themselves. They need to remember, like, if you get sick, you need to stay home, like that kind of thing, because they will just keep going. They will just, they won't stop. So I guess that's what I would say, is it's a awareness thing to know that, don't wear yourself down. make sure you're very much taking care of yourself, getting enough sleep, and that you're planning on these breaks, that you're taking the vacation, that you're having dinner with your friends, that you're balancing that hyper focus with some space to relax and unwind and not think about anything like specifically, or not assign your mind to anything. And I know it's challenging for them because they're all about getting their shit done. Aquarius is the water bearer. You would think it's a water sign, right? But it's not. Even their symbol is like these like waves, but no, they're an air sign. They are typically good with technology, good with like new things, whether that's technology or new music or like trends, almost things of that nature. They have these innovative visionary type souls, and they are very spacey. It is hard for them they have a beautiful humanitarian group, like, oh, we're friends, we help each other out, like kind of vibe. However, it can be very difficult sometimes for them to separate themselves, and similar to that Libra thing, where they have like self-sacrificing tendencies, while Aquarius has more of a blending in kind of tendency. So they have to be careful that they're not just kind of going with the flow too much, or they understand that as much as this common goal might be really fun, or they really love working with their friends, or they really like they're okay with that type of environment, if they feel called to take on some Leo energy and be like the star of the show for a little while, or be an artist or something that is more you and less of the common goal, they're the type that would serve very well to be grounded and carry grounding stones and focus on being very connected to the earth, because they can be so spacey. And that is something that I see creates, again, we've talked about this a few times, but challenges in getting something done, because it's very easy for them to be distracted, and many times they will intentionally distract themselves. Sometimes they enjoy the working on the project so much that they don't want to even finish the project. I know that sounds weird, but it's like they think they want to finish it, but when you're like, hey, you probably could have had that done last month, and they'll be like, yeah, but then I wanted to work on this, and then I wanted to work on this. So it's like they like having all of this stuff out there, but sometimes they need to ground and just like close that book, move on to the next one now, because we need to do that specifically with our careers, with our work, with our projects. So that would be my advice to Aquarius, to get grounded and get yourself a planner, like give yourself deadlines and try to meet them, or do the best that you can. All right, so we're at Pisces, which is the last sign of the zodiac. Pisces is very, very mystical, very intuitive as well. Most of the water signs are very intuitive. I'm not saying that the other ones aren't, but the water signs are known for being very fluid and intuitive that way. They are gifted in mystic arts. They are excellent at putting intention into things and seeing wanting to learn about these like spiritual or scientific or things that are on the more ancient teachings, you could say. The downside to Pisces is that they can be like wishy-washy, they can be non-committing, they can be a bit lazy, and like sometimes it's good to be lazy and give some things space, but they're kind of like the opposite of Virgo. We all have our opposites, and if Virgo's like super like, oh, let me plan this, let me get this done, let me check off my boxes, Pisces like, I feel like it's gonna work out. And I think that's a great way to be. I'm not saying that that's wrong, but sometimes they have to remember to do the work too, or know that they have to set themselves up at least in some way so that things are taken care of. That could be having, a relationship where, you're provided for and you're free to do your thing. Like if that's how they set themselves up, that's perfectly cool. So let's say that if a Pisces is lazy, I'm just using that word, I hope it doesn't offend. They want the time to read their books. They want their time to get in touch with their mystical side. They want the time to think and feel and check in with themselves and sense things. And they're very tied to their intuition and just sensing. They're very, very sensitive in terms of vibration, of the like more astral senses and things like that. So if they're all caught up in their day-to-day life, they lose that connection. They don't feel like they have that going on, or they don't have the time for it. So they need to set themselves up in some way that they have that time, and that's a challenge for any of us, to find time and everything. So a good example would be getting a grant, or something along the lines of that, where they are set up so that they have this freedom, this space, this time to work towards something that they are passionate about in the way that they would like to do so. You can look at that as the quote unquote like traditional provider homekeeper kind of relationship, where someone's like, okay, I got the bills, I'm the one going to work, that's my thing. Maybe that's the Capricorn. And then the Pisces is like, okay, well, home's gonna be good, I'm gonna cook you some good food, I'm gonna like, we're gonna be comfortable, I'm gonna create a beautiful place for us, but I need to take a nap. And I need my time, I need this, I want to go to school for this, or I want to take this class. And they can set themselves up that way. So the thing that I would advise Pisces to do is just make sure that they have some element going on of being able to be organized, even if it's not necessary for them. Let's say, like, if they do have that freedom, if they set themselves up, no matter what that is, that could be a job working from home too, or being a writer, or being something where what your work is to do, but no one's telling you when to do it. You might have a deadline, but it's not like, oh, well, where were you at 9 o'clock? We had a meeting, that kind of thing. And they do things in their own time. So it would be beneficial for them to just make sure that they have that going on, and they're not fighting the current. Pisces is the type to, we all could say this about all different types of the zodiac, I guess, but it's hard for them to fit into the society that we've established in terms of like work ethic, or all this pressure that we put on people to like go type thing. So for them to know that they need that for themselves to be happy, to be content, to follow their own personal callings, I would say, to let that go. Like, if it's like, oh, but I need this job, I need this, like, it's like, you do need stuff, but you don't have to sacrifice your innate callings to, just be like, oh, well, I need to make all this money, or I need to make my rent, or whatever. There are other ways to get it. It would be good for you to open up to that, manifest that, and take a lazy approach, even, like manifest and like sit back and watch that happen. But to also bring in some type of organization, some planning, like, how can I set myself up so that I have that time, so that I have the freedom, so that I'm not pressured, and I can take a damn nap if I want to, or whatever the case may be, or I can meditate, and no one's gonna be like, oh, we need to do this, like, kind of thing, and be up their butt. So that would be my suggestion. Set yourself up. Be organized enough to set yourself up. Going back to my continued disclaimer, this is so general. This is not, like I said, I'm not super, super, super emotional. I have very deep emotions, but we all have other components, other things playing out in our chart that will change elements of these like core parts of us. So this is just for entertainment. It's my real thoughts, but it's for entertainment. I hope that you find it fun. And if you haven't looked up anything in your chart yet, I encourage you to. There's many free sites online like astro.com and other ones that you can totally look into that on, and gain some language for yourself to potentially identify with, because it's like having a diagnosis in a sense, which, like, I hate that I'm using that word for astrology, But when you have a diagnosis, let's say, like I have asthma, I can be like, I have asthma. If I'm going to go running, or if it's going to be very cold and I'm going to be walking far, or if I'm going to be around these types of animals, I should bring my inhaler, like that kind of thing. So it's like something you can work with. If you identify with elements of your chart and you can identify with the challenges of them, you're better suited to set yourself up so that you can work with those challenges, is what I mean to say by that diagnosis thing. Don't diagnose yourself through your astrology chart. That's certainly not what I was implying. So I hope that you found this fun or interesting or relaxing. And I'm so sorry, like, there's a lot of noises going on right now, and I hope that you can't really hear them too much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is kind of an easy video for me, but I have some really good ones planned. A couple of guided meditations, one that I did for balancing the chakras like months ago that I haven't edited yet, which I will get to, and one that I've experienced myself recently during a journey of grounding and transforming, and it's very much tied into the shamanic work that I'm doing. So I hope that you enjoy those, and thank you so much. From the bottom of my heart, as always, namaste.